Our soils generally in Australia contain significant levels of potassium. In the black soils, for example, here we've got maybe up to 1,000 parts per million of exchangeable potassium, adequate for many, many crops, considering that grain removal is relatively low. As you move to other environments, such as we've seen in the Western District, I've got some potassium experiments down there that are showing 30% increase due to 25 to 50 kilograms of potassium at seeding, and not a lot of difference between top-dressed potassium at four-leaf stage or potassium applied at seeding. The timing of potassium's become pretty interesting. We can diagnose potassium deficiency in a field, for example. We saw some in the Western District where we see under the old windrows, say from a canola crop, we see better crop growth, and that's an indication of potassium, low potassium supply, which has been enhanced where the windrow is. As the windrow sat there and waters maybe leached some of the potassium into the topsoil. What do you then do? Well, you then look at potassium at seeding, muriate of potash or sulphate of potash applied at seeding, or top dressing during the crop. In the situation where you top dress, it tends to be less efficient the further it is from seeding. So if you're top dressing at growth stage 30, stem elongation, then the efficiency can be pretty low. The work from Western Australia said that it really took 4 times more potassium at later in the crop to get the same response as if that 1/4 was applied earlier. So timing's important. The other interesting issue with potassium is that the role potassium plays in crops is as a stress regulant, for example. There's been, we've seen it with some canola. We had a canola experiment in the Western District this year that looked at potassium rates on canola, and the plots that had high potassium continued flowering for longer than the plots that had lower potassium. Now, I haven't got the yield results back from them yet, but you would think that extended flowering period, which was due to being more stress tolerant, water stress tolerant, would come out as increased yield potential. So that's one of the benefits that you can see with potassium. The supply of potassium in the soil is something we're still coming to grips with. Soil tests for potassium maybe don't go deep enough. The Better Fertiliser Decisions for Crops database was used to identify that on lighter soils, instead of a 0 to 10 centimetre sample, you should be using a 0 to 30 centimetre sample, or at least considering the 10 to 30 centimetre level of potassium supply, because that's where the roots are involved. I've also worked with Mike Bell in Queensland looking at placing potassium and phosphorus deeper in the soil, 20 centimetres, in the summer cropping areas. The particular issue there is that the soil, surface soil, might have adequate potassium, but the roots don't inhabit that area because the water is deeper in the soil. And a winter crop, the topsoil dries out, and the winter crop relies on the subsoil nutrition. So putting nutrients, phosphorus and potassium in that area where the soil's going to be wet, where the roots are, gives the best responses. So it's not just rate, it's also placement of the potassium relative to where the water is and where the roots are going to occupy and be active.